After more than 30 years in medicine, there's one thing I still find myself repeating, not because I've forgotten, but because others forget far too often. Never stop your medication on your own. I've seen so many patients, people my age, 60, 65, sometimes 70, walk into my office, rest their trembling hands on their knees, and say, "Doctor, I'm scared of this pill. I heard it can hurt my memory. I want to stop taking it." And I look at them, and I understand. I understand that fear. When you hear that a medicine might make you forget your loved ones' names, forget where you left your keys, of course you want to quit immediately. But here's the truth. Stopping your medication the wrong way can be just as dangerous. Imagine this: your body is like an orchestra. Every pill, every hormone, every neuron is a musician. If you suddenly pull one instrument out in the middle of the concert, the whole piece can fall apart. It took us months, adjusting her dose carefully, combining it with therapy and breathing meditation. Eventually, she slept again. And more importantly, she learned something powerful. Taking care of your memory isn't about cutting pills. It's about learning to live in harmony with your body. Many people tell me, "I'm getting old. Of course, my memory's fading." But honestly, it's not always age. Sometimes it's the very medications you think are harmless. Some people take stomach meds every day without realizing they block vitamin B12 absorption, slowly weakening the nerves like frayed electrical wires. Others take blood pressure pills, sleep aids, allergy meds, a little of each. But together, they slow the brain down bit by bit. That's why, every 6 months, I ask my patients to bring in everything they take. Not just prescriptions, but supplements, vitamins, herbs. We sit together and go through each one. Some we keep, some we reduce, some we replace. It's called a medication review, a simple habit that can save you from years of unnecessary memory loss. I'll never forget Robert, 72, a retired pilot. He said, "Doctor, my memory's slippin'. I'm afraid it's Alzheimer's." When I looked at his medication list, I found 3 drugs that affect the brain: an anticholinergic allergy pill, a sedative, and a reflux medication. We slowly adjusted the doses, added B12, and started light exercise every morning. 3 months later, he smiled and said, "I can remember my granddaughter's name again." See? Sometimes, if you do things right, slowly, together with your doctor, your brain can come back to life. At our age, health isn't a race anymore. It's the art of keeping rhythm. The rhythm of breath, of heartbeat, of balance between logic and emotion, between medicine and the body itself. I'm not saying you should mistrust every pill. I'm saying become the person who understands your body best. The one who asks your doctor, "Does this medicine affect my memory? Is there a gentler option? Can I taper off slowly?" Because when you ask, you take back control. And that, to me, is the first step toward medical mindfulness. Realizing that memory, health, and quality of life all begin with cooperation between you and your physician. So I'll end with one simple question. If your memory is the mirror that reflects your whole life, are you ready to keep it clear every day? If your answer is yes, start today. Don't stop your medication alone. Sit down with your doctor, review every pill, every habit. Because sometimes a small change is all it takes to preserve the most precious thing of all: the clarity of your mind and the memories of your life. Have you ever taken a pill to help you sleep, and then woken up feeling foggy, like a thin mist has settled over your mind? If so, there's a good chance you've been using a benzodiazepine. Familiar names like lorazepam, diazepam, or alprazolam. I used to prescribe these medications more than 20 years ago. Back then, they were considered a kind of miracle. One small pill, and you could finally sleep. The anxiety melted away. But time taught me a lesson no medical textbook ever spelled out clearly. Every pill comes with a price. Let me tell you about Lucy. She's 71. Once lively, loved gardening, went for evening walks. She started taking diazepam after her husband passed away, just to help me sleep a little. But that little turned into 7 years. When she finally came to see me, she said, "Doctor, I can sleep, but it's like my memory has been drained out of me. I can't even remember what I ate yesterday." And I realized the problem wasn't her age. It was that her brain had learned to live with the brakes on. See, benzodiazepines work by stimulating a calming chemical called GABA. It relaxes the brain, like pulling a handbrake on a car. But if you keep that brake pulled too long, the engine weakens, the reflexes slow, and eventually memory begins to fade. Little by little. You might think, but I only take a small dose. How bad could it be? Here's the thing. The brain never forgets. T remembers every night you forced it to sleep with a pill. Over time, it stops making enough GABA on its own, and dependence begins. Modern science is very clear. Using benzodiazepines for more than 3 consecutive months can increase your risk of dementia by over 50%. Keep going for 6 months. That risk may rise above 80%. But don't let those numbers frighten you. Let them wake you up. I'm not telling you to throw away your pills tonight. Quite the opposite. I want you to slow down. Sit down, write down everything you're taking, and bring that list to your doctor. Ask them, "Can I start tapering this dose safely? Are there more natural ways to help me sleep?" One of my other patients, Harold, 66, was a retired teacher with an excellent memory. After he retired, he started taking alprazolam for insomnia. 2 years later, he told me, "I taught for decades, and now I can't even finish a single page without forgetting what I read." So we built a plan, gradually tapering the dose, replacing it with cognitive behavioral therapy, breathing meditation, and daily morning walks. 3 months later, he smiled and said, "I can remember the names of all my old students again. It's like someone turned the lights back on in my brain." Here's what I want you to remember. Sleeping well doesn't always mean sleeping deeply. And deep sleep can't come from a pill forever. Real sleep is when your brain knows how to rest, without chemical crutches. It's a gift of rhythm, breath, and inner stillness. If you're taking benzodiazepines, don't blame yourself. You weren't wrong for wanting peace at night, but maybe it's time to learn how to set that pill down safely. Like letting go of a bicycle for the first time. You might wobble a little at first, but soon you'll find your balance again. Before we finish, I want you to ask yourself, when was the last time I truly slept? Deeply, dreamlessly, without a pill. If you can't remember, then this is your moment to begin again. Sleep is the foundation of memory, wisdom, and longevity. And sometimes all it takes is one less pill to give your brain another chance to live awake, clear, and free. Have you ever taken a cold pill, an allergy pill, or something for an overactive bladder, and then felt foggy, unfocused, even losing track of what you were saying mid-sentence? If that sounds familiar, you might have met what I call the silent thief of memory, a class of drugs known as anticholinergics. The name may sound unfamiliar, but these drugs hide in plain sight. Cold medicines with diphenhydramine, allergy medications, bladder control pills, older antidepressants. They ease your cough, calm your nerves, help you sleep, but the price can be a slower memory and duller thinking. Let me tell you about Maria, 74 years old. Her daughter brought her in and said, "Doctor, Mom's been forgetting things." Once she even left the stove on while cooking. When I reviewed her medications, I saw she was taking oxybutynin for bladder control and diphenhydramine to help her sleep. Both of these block acetylcholine, a neurotransmitter essential for learning, memory, and thought. I told her, "Maria, our brain is like a radio. Acetylcholine is the signal, and these drugs are the static. When there's too much static, the sound, your memory, fades." We gradually changed her medications, added some daily memory exercises, morning walks, and a diet rich in greens, eggs, and fatty fish. 3 months later, she came back smiling and said, "Doctor, I don't just remember better. I remember the old songs I used to sing with my husband." And I smiled too, because sometimes restoring memory isn't just about the brain, it's about the heart. Large studies show that long-term use of anticholinergic drugs can raise the risk of dementia by more than 50%. And what's more troubling, the effects can linger even after you stop. The brain doesn't forget that injury right away. It's like a dry field that needs time for new seeds to grow again. I often tell my patients, every medicine has two sides, one that helps you and one that quietly takes something away. The problem isn't being afraid of medicine. It's about knowing what you're taking and why. After 60 or 70, the body doesn't process drugs the way it used to. A small dose, one that seems harmless, can slowly build up, like drops of water filling a glass. And when the glass overflows, what spills out first is your clarity, your memory, your sharpness. So I want you to try something small after watching this. Go to your medicine cabinet. Take out every box, every bottle. Look carefully at the labels. Write down the name, the dose, and why you're taking it. And at your next doctor's visit, hand them that list and ask, "Do any of these affect my memory?" Just one question, but it could save a lifetime of memories. You see, our brain is one of the most miraculous gifts God ever gave us. It holds everything. The face of someone you love, the smell of your mother's cooking, the laughter of your grandchild. And sometimes, because of one little pill, those memories can start to drift away. But believe me, the brain can heal. When we care for it, when we let go of what's not serving us, it learns how to be clear again. So if you've been forgetting small things, don't rush to think, "I'm just getting old." Maybe your brain is simply tired, crowded by pills that were meant to help. And maybe, with just a few careful changes, you can find your clarity again, your memory, your energy, your joy for life. Start by asking. Start by listening. Start by choosing wisely. Because in the end, no one can protect your memory but you. Have you ever held your blood pressure pill in your hand and thought, "I guess I'll have to take this for the rest of my life"? I understand that feeling, because every morning millions of people around the world do the same thing. Swallow a tiny pill, hoping it keeps their heart beating smoothly for one more day. But few realize that some blood pressure medications can also quietly slow the mind over time. I'm talking about calcium channel blockers. Familiar names like amlodipine, nifedipine, and verapamil. They work beautifully. They lower blood pressure, relax blood vessels, and ease the heart's workload. But here's what most people never hear. When a drug changes how blood flows, it can also change how signals flow in the brain. I remember James, 75, a retired electrical engineer, sharp as a tack, remembered every detail. After a few years on amlodipine, he came to me and said, "Doctor, lately I feel slower." When someone asks me something, it takes me a few seconds just to respond. It wasn't Alzheimer's. It wasn't depression. It was a subtle shift in how his brain was processing information. His blood flow was fine, but the communication between neurons had slowed down, like an internet connection with a weak signal. I explained that some people on long-term calcium channel blockers can feel mentally foggy, have trouble focusing, or feel emotionally flat. We need steady blood pressure. Yes, but we also need a clear mind to truly live. Those two things must go hand in hand. People often ask me, "So, what should I do, doctor? Should I stop the medication?" Never stop abruptly. Instead, we take a step back and look at the whole picture. Sometimes simply switching to another class, like an ACE inhibitor or an ARB, can ease side effects while keeping blood pressure under control. But the most important thing is to listen to your body. I have a small rule I teach every patient over 60. Write down how you feel each week. If your mind feels duller or your memory weaker, tell your doctor. Don't stay silent. Because in medicine, we can only heal what you're willing to share. A pill isn't bad. It only becomes dangerous when it's taken for years without anyone ever asking, "Do I still need this?" I often tell my patients, the brain also needs to be nourished, not just by blood, but by joy. Whatever medicine you take, balance it with habits that keep your mind alive. Morning walks, music, conversations with loved ones, learning something new. Even something simple, like brewing a new kind of tea. Every small activity is an exercise for your memory, a counterweight to the quiet side effects of medication. High blood pressure can strain the heart, but it's a joyless, motionless life that truly drains the brain. So remember this: medicine can manage your illness, but only you can create healing. Tomorrow morning, when you hold that little pill again, remind yourself, you're not just taking it for your heart. You're also living for your mind. Listen to your body. Talk with your doctor. And cherish every moment you can still remember. Because memory doesn't only live in the brain, it lives in how you choose to live each day. There's a kind of medicine I jokingly call the silent trade-off of aging. It's the statin, the cholesterol-lowering drug that tens of millions of people around the world take every single day. And I know it well because I've prescribed it countless times. Statins are the heroes of modern medicine. They lower cholesterol, prevent strokes, protect the heart. But like any hero, sometimes they leave quiet scars, hidden, subtle, until one day you realize your memory isn't quite what it used to be. One morning, Paul, 69, a former jazz musician, came to see me. He said, "Doctor, lately I've been forgetting my chords. My mind feels like it's covered in fog. Slower, less alive." When I looked at his records, I saw he'd been taking atorvastatin for about 2 years. I asked, "Do you ever feel tired, unfocused, or forgetful?" He nodded. It's like my thoughts just slip away. Nothing sticks for more than a minute. It reminded me of so many others I've seen. Statins lower cholesterol in the blood, but few realize that the brain itself is made of nearly 60% fat, much of it cholesterol. When cholesterol levels drop too low, the walls of brain cells weaken, electrical signals slow, and memory, the most delicate of all, begins to fade. I'm not saying statins are bad. Absolutely not. They've saved countless lives, but like sunlight, which can warm or burn, statins must be used with understanding, not just routine. With Paul, we adjusted his dose and added coenzyme Q10, a natural compound that statins often deplete. CoQ10 is like the fuel that powers your cells. Without it, both the brain and body can feel drained. A few months later, he came back, guitar in hand, smiling. "Doctor, I can remember my old melodies again." I smiled too, not because I'm some miracle worker, but because his body simply knew how to heal once it was treated right. Recent studies have shown the same thing. Some long-term statin users experience brain fog, trouble concentrating, or temporary forgetfulness. But when the medication is reduced or adjusted properly, those symptoms often fade within weeks or months. The key is this: never stop your medication on your own. The heart matters as much as the mind. You and your doctor can find the balance, the fine line between protecting your heart and keeping your brain bright. You see, in our 60s and 70s, every pill is more than chemistry. It's a delicate decision. Every change in your body, every subtle feeling, is your body whispering to you, "Listen," before it has to shout, through confusion, forgotten names, or those mornings when your thoughts drift like mist over water. Lowering cholesterol to live longer is right, but living longer isn't the goal. Living clearly, meaningfully, and with memory, that's the goal. If you're taking statins, talk to your doctor. Ask if you should supplement with CoQ10 or if another type of medication might suit you better. Because I truly believe protecting your heart and protecting your memory are not two separate paths. They are two rhythms of the same life. You know, for many of us, the day begins with the smell of coffee. That sweet, deep aroma, a familiar call to adulthood. I'm the same way. I love coffee. But after more than 30 years as a neurologist, I have to admit something to you. Even your morning cup of coffee can be a double-edged sword for your memory. One of my patients, David, 63 years old, a journalist, sharp, witty, and brilliant. Every morning he drank 3 strong cups. He told me, "Doctor, without coffee, I can't write a single line." But then he began forgetting his coworkers' names, missing meetings, even leaving articles half-written, unable to recall what he wanted to say. When we ran his scans, his brain looked perfectly fine. Yet there was something else. He was suffering from chronic sleep deprivation, and he didn't even know it. Caffeine works by blocking adenosine, a chemical that tells your brain it's time to rest. When you block adenosine, you feel alert and energized, but your brain never gets to rest. It's like forcing a car to run all night without refueling. At first, it keeps going, but eventually it starts to stall. Caffeine also raises cortisol, the stress hormone. When cortisol stays high for too long, the blood vessels in your brain constrict. Less blood, less oxygen reaches your memory centers. And slowly, your memory begins to fade. Many people think a few hours of sleep is enough, but the truth is, deep sleep, the kind that repairs and strengthens memory, is the first thing caffeine takes away. I remember asking David, "If I told you to quit coffee for 2 weeks, would you try it?" He laughed. "Doctor, I think I'd die." But he tried, not to give up coffee, but to get to know his body again. The first week was tough. Headaches, irritability, exhaustion. By the second week, he was sleeping deeply again. He woke up clear-headed, energized, no longer needing coffee just to turn on. He came back smiling and said, "Now I drink less, and I drink because I enjoy it, not because I need it." Coffee isn't the enemy. It only becomes one when we use it to cover up the fatigue we refuse to listen to. At our age, 200 to 300 milligrams of caffeine a day, about 2 to 3 small cups, is enough, and if you can, avoid drinking it after 2 p.m. Your brain needs time to unwind, to let sleep come back naturally. I still drink coffee every morning, but I call it my slow ritual. I brew slowly, breathe deeply, and wait for the sunlight before I sip. I let the aroma wake up my emotions, not overwork my brain. So keep your coffee, but also keep your sleep, your focus, and your memory. Don't let caffeine make you forget what truly matters, that your brain, like your heart, needs rest, care, and a little space to slow down. Because sometimes a deep night's sleep is worth far more than the strongest cup of coffee. You know, after years of working with thousands of older patients, I've realized something. There's no pill that protects memory better than the way you live your life. Sometimes we spend so much time searching for the miracle drug, something to keep us young, sharp, unforgetting. But the strongest medicine has always been this: how you live each day. I remember Ellen, 72, who once told me, "Doctor, I'm not afraid of illness. I'm afraid of waking up one morning and not remembering my daughter's name." That sentence stayed with me for a long time, because for many people at that age, memory is the final home of the soul. When we lose it, we don't just forget the past. We lose pieces of who we are. That's why I tell my patients, don't just take pills for your heart, your joints, or your stomach. Take care of your brain, by the way you live, every single day. 1. Move your body. You don't need heavy exercise. Just walk for 30 minutes a day. Let your heart beat a little faster, breathe a little deeper. And that's enough. Because when you move, blood carries oxygen and nutrients to your brain, waking up neurons, helping them talk to each other, and building new connections. I once had an 80-year-old patient who practiced Tai Chi for 20 minutes every morning. After 6 months, her memory had noticeably improved. She told me, "I don't forget my keys anymore. And I even remember my high school friend's name." That's not magic. That's the power of consistency. 2. Feed your brain. Real food. Salmon, walnuts, olive oil, leafy greens, berries, turmeric, green tea. These aren't just good for your heart. They reduce inflammation and nourish your brain cells. And here's the miracle. The human brain can create new neurons even after age 70, as long as it has energy, nutrition, and a reason to keep learning. 3. Sleep enough. Sleep is when your brain cleans house. It clears out waste, strengthens memory, and organizes experiences into long-term storage. Many people exercise, take vitamins, do everything right, but ignore sleep. That's why they still feel tired, foggy, forgetful. Sleep is medicine, the most natural therapy nature ever gave us. It's free, and yet we often throw it away. 4. Don't let your brain be lonely. There's a kind of death that happens long before the heart stops beating. It's when we stop connecting, stop sharing, stop laughing. Research shows that people who stay socially engaged, who talk, laugh, argue, play, or simply share moments, have up to 40% lower risk of memory decline. So call an old friend. Go for a walk with your neighbor. Play chess, listen to music, learn to paint, learn a new language. Your brain doesn't need to be young, it just needs to be used. 5. Slow down. Stress is memory's silent enemy. When you worry, cortisol rises, neurons weaken, and memories fade. Take a deep breath. Look around. Notice how beautiful the day is. You're here. You can feel. You can remember. And that's enough. You see, we can't control getting older, but we can shape how we age. Aging isn't decline. It's a gentle return to clarity. If you're hearing this today, tell yourself, I'll start with one small thing. Walk a little more, sleep an hour longer, or call an old friend. Because sometimes, memory doesn't live in your head. It lives in the moments you live fully. Let me tell you about a group of medications you probably know well. Or maybe you or someone you love takes them every day. They're called calcium channel blockers. Familiar names like amlodipine, nifedipine, and verapamil. They're faithful companions to millions of people with high blood pressure. They help the heart work easier, keep blood pressure steady, relax blood vessels. But like any friend, sometimes they have a quiet, hidden side. I still remember Susan, 68, a retired high school teacher. She came to see me, not for her heart, but for something subtle. She said, "Lately, I don't feel as quick as I used to. When an old student calls, it takes me a few seconds to recognize their voice. I still remember things, but it's like my brain's running slower." She didn't have dementia. After nearly 8 years on amlodipine, her mental sharpness had just dulled a little. Not serious, but enough that she felt she wasn't quite herself anymore. I explained that for some people, calcium channel blockers can slightly widen the blood vessels in the brain, slowing blood flow to the areas that manage focus and quick thinking. It's not dangerous, it doesn't damage the brain, but over many years, it can make the mind feel a step slower, less crisp. I told her, the brain is like a musical instrument. When you adjust the blood pressure in its strings, the tone can change. Not wrong, just different. You just have to listen to that change. Many people believe that as long as their blood pressure numbers look fine, everything's fine. But the goal of treatment isn't just to live longer. It's to stay clear and alive while you do. So if you've been on calcium channel blockers for a long time, I recommend checking your cognitive health regularly, just like you check your blood pressure or blood sugar. Once a year, test your memory, attention, and reaction time. If you notice your mind slowing down, tell your doctor. Sometimes all it takes is adjusting your dose, switching to another medication, or combining it with exercise and proper nutrition. And your clarity returns. A European study once found that older adults who used calcium channel blockers long-term showed mild declines in attention and reaction speed. But when the medication was reduced or changed under supervision, these changes were completely reversible. That means your brain isn't old. It's just running a little slower, and it can get its rhythm back if you notice it in time. I often tell my patients, blood pressure can be managed with medicine, but a sharp mind is sustained through mindfulness. Each morning, when you take your blood pressure pill, Spend a few extra minutes reading an article, doing a crossword, or talking with someone you love. That's how you keep your brain flexible, like a muscle that needs movement. Our bodies, even as they age, still deserve care that's thoughtful. And the mind, the greatest gift nature ever gave us, deserves to be protected with love and understanding. Check your blood pressure, but don't forget to check your mind, because staying healthy matters. But staying clear, present, and whole, that's true happiness. I've met many people who thought they were becoming forgetful, or even losing their mind, but after a closer look, the real problem was their eyes and ears. They weren't truly forgetting. They just couldn't hear clearly enough or see sharply enough to remember. Imagine this. You're watching a movie, but the picture is blurry and the sound is muffled. Can you really follow the story? Your brain has to work twice as hard, guessing words, filling in faces, piecing together details. Over time, that effort becomes exhaustion, and that exhaustion becomes cognitive decline. That's why I always tell my patients, if you can't hear well, try a hearing aid. If your vision's blurry, get your eyes checked. Update your glasses, because every time you restore a sense, you help your brain breathe easier. A major study from Johns Hopkins University found that older adults who used hearing aids experienced 48% slower cognitive decline compared to those who didn't. And people who kept up regular social interactions, even just 15 minutes of conversation a day, had noticeably better memory and focus. I once had a patient, Anna, 74 years old. She hadn't joined any social gatherings for 5 years because, as she put it, everyone's voices just blended together. It was exhausting. Her daughter bought her a hearing aid. A few weeks later, Anna came back to my office, her face glowing. "Doctor, I can hear my granddaughter's laughter again. I didn't realize how much joy I'd missed all these years." When her brain reconnected to sound, to people, her memory brightened too. Not because of a pill, but because life had returned. You see, memory health doesn't live in a clinic, and it doesn't come from a prescription bottle. It lives out there, in the life you're willing to reach for and touch. Let your ears hear the world again. Let your eyes truly see the people you love. Talk, laugh, share a cup of tea, tell an old story, because every conversation is a dose of medicine for your brain, free and more powerful than any drug. After more than 30 years as a doctor, I've learned one truth. Memory doesn't just live in the brain. It lives in the way we connect with the world. When we listen, see, feel, and love, our brains stay alive, young, and full of what truly matters: people. So if you want to protect your memory, don't just care for your brain. Care for your eyes, your ears, and the heart that connects them all. Because memory, in the end, isn't what we store in our minds. It's what we keep in our hearts.